Hello, everyone. This meeting is now being broadcast on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Meeting is now being broadcast on YouTube.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We have a quorum and we are ready at your leisure.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you to Billings for hosting us at your beautiful site. And it's fun to see the people outside recreating on the lake, and I wish I was out there with them. Truthfully, it looks like a great day. I'll call this meeting to order, and we're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, and let the minutes reflect that all members of our board are present here today. We will start with the approval from our March 12th meeting minutes. Anybody see any changes or anything we need? Adam? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move that we accept the minutes from the March 12th
Thank you.
as presented to us.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Let's start with our board member reports and meeting disclosures. Jody, actually, I'm just gonna start with you. Is that all right?
Sure, thanks. As far as I know, in District 1, which is Region 1, Region 2, everything's up and running, and all of the campos are in place, and all the volunteers are in place. For Region 1, I recently joined the CAC meeting to a field trip to the Ray Coons Wildlife Management Area. This is a popular area for hunting and recreation close to Kalispell. That was on May 5th. And we toured a recent forest treatment project for the wildlife staff. And it was a pretty good educational trip there. And then I returned to Kalispell for another CAC meeting on the 20th. That was the final meeting of the year. It ended with an interesting roundtable discussion, question and answer from Region 1 CAC members. Also Region 1, I need to report the Conclow fishing access site should be open soon. And that is a fishing access site on the west side of Flathead Lake, which is located near Dayton, which will give it'll be open year long, which is rare for there on Flathead, and also be improved access for the Wild Horse Reservoir. Be real nice there. And that I haven't seen it, but looking at the plans for that, this is kind of a new generation of fishing access site. I mean, it is room for bigger trailers, more amenities, it's more attractive. And members of the CAC for Region 1 that have seen it are very impressed and are excited about it opening up. Also Region 1, I gotta say that Dave Landstrom, the regional recreation manager, will be retiring in July. If you guys haven't seen it, there was a great write-up on Dave's career in the last issue of the Montana Outdoors magazine. And I'm very thankful for the time I've got to spend with Dave. He's taken a lot of time to take me around and show me some sites. Let me see Camel's nose under the tent of what it takes to manage some of these recreation areas and some of the challenges. So Dave's just really a wealth of knowledge. I'm pretty sure he'll be missed, and I know I'm gonna miss him. So Region 2, on March 31st, Travelers Rest State Park hosted the public for its celebration of its 25th anniversary. The event was very well attended, and it was nice to see all the public support. Folks, there's a lot of volunteers that help with that site, and it's great to see all the public come out and support Travelers Rest. And then I turned around and on April 27th, the CAC meeting for Region 2 was held at Travelers Rest, which was kind of nice to see. Our meetings actually held at a state park, so that was cool. And we got a personal tour of the park with some park history from the new Bitterroot Park and Outdoor Recreation Manager, Jess Martin. She did a fantastic job and enjoyed visiting with folks and hearing some of the new discoveries and that verify that Lewis and Clark did actually stay there. So that's nice. We have proof, right? So, and also in Region 2, John and Nancy Owen fishing access site improvements are completed, and that site opened on June 5th. There's always been a fishing access site there. It's kind of like a dirt, rustic, unimproved place, and now they've added restrooms and some larger trailer parking areas, and there's actually 4 first come, first served campsites, which is very rare to find camping on the Bitterroot. So that'll be real nice, and it'd be a nice addition to that area. It's very close proximity to Fort Owen. And in Helena, Spring Meadow State Park is getting a new adaptive kayak launch that has been donated by the Montana State Parks Foundation, which is wonderful. One thing that this kind of catches my attention is that it's very close to Fort Harrison, and there's kind of been a connection with Spring Meadow and Fort Harrison. There's a trail system that goes right from Fort Harrison into the park. And also in the past, there's been military benefit runs that have been staged out of Spring Meadow, and the proceeds go to our wounded men and women of the armed forces. So I'm sure there's going to be, this place will be utilized by folks that visit Fort Harrison, and that it'll be great to take the military folks and they can get out on the water and kind of get them back into activities. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
John?
Yeah, well, don't have a whole lot. Of course, tomorrow we'll be seeing the battlefield. That'll be really fun. I'm interested in that, the history there. I did attend the Citizens for Balanced Use Conference with Jody last month, and that was really good. And then what sounds like Cooney Reservoir project went well, and they're up and running there. Other than that, next month, I look forward to visiting Medicine Rock State Park.
Nice,
Do some camping out there.
very cool.
Yeah.
Your pup was real.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to be there during the Northern Lights. That would be really something. That would be so cool. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Russ?
As you all know, I kind of crashed this winter, so my leg is doing much better. I'm walking around now without crutches and without braces and everything. My first walk was Kathy come and visit me. We went down to Bannock. And I know Bannock pretty well. I love it. It's got a lot of benches. And John Phillips took us around showing us, and he showed Kathy into the buildings and around, and I sat out on the benches, but walked the whole distance of it. It was
Good
really-
therapy.
It was really good therapy. And I took a picture of John and Kathy and I in front of the church. So you can see that. And in this booklet, there's a picture of the church that shows you how rustic it is. And now the siding project is done. This is what it looks like. So the group that's doing the siding, a couple of young men from Missoula. And they milled the Doug fir and cut it into 1x6 boards. It's not 3/4 inch by 5.5, it's 1x6. And they put linseed oil on it, so they're already sealed. And the linseed oil will turn gray in 1 to 2 years. So the sides that face, the front of the church that faces south will get a lot of grain pretty early. And the other sides won't as much. Then the other picture that I sent Eric, and he copied for everybody. This is the school and the Masonic Temple. And that's the first Masonic temple in Montana. And it was pretty scary going up the old stairs to go up there. So they put in all new stairs and made it safe. And they did not put siding on the front of that building. The bottom of it is log on the front, and that's what a lot of the buildings are in Bannock. They'd be log to a point, then they would put stick frame on and they'd put siding on it. So I believe it's the Montana Motel was the other one that they put siding on, and they sided what had siding on it, but the other they left alone and just re-chinked that. So John's doing a great job there, making it look good. Back to the church for a second. The church siding was paid for by the Bannock Association. They do fundraisers and they're really a big part of Bannock. And all of the parks that have any kind of an association that helps promote it and helps fund it. Projects like this are pretty amazing. So that was great. One of the things that's a little nervous about down there at Bannock, we're in an extreme drought this year in that part of the state. Maybe the worst that I've ever seen. Our reservoir only filled Clark Canyon to 50-some%. And there were a lot of years that it would full pool and over the 120%. So they're already, it's usually mid-July that the outflows exceed the inflows. That happened in May this year. So, ranchers have water rights. Bannock sits at the bottom of a ranching valley. So they get what's left. And that's the water for fire protection for the town of Bannock is that creek. They have their own little water system, but for fire protection, it's the Grasshopper Creek. And I talked to Joan Phillips a little bit about it. I worked in the oil field years ago, and they actually put in little water systems around the well sites. They brought in a 400-gallon frac tank that they pulled in behind a truck, set it down, and filled it up with water. They brought water trucks in and filled them. And, mostly that was used for fracking wells, and they'd have 8 or 10 of them on site and filled up, and they'd go to work with them. But these set up on a hill, and I always wondered why they were there, and it was in the spring, and it was just for some fire protection. They had hoses on them, and it was gravity feed. They could put around any fires that are around the well itself and the man camp and all of that. So they're a little bit of an eyesore, and maybe with some right placement, they could do something like that, in a tough situation like this, to have some more water there. If they get a fire started in there and you've been there, you know how dry it is. It'd be gone in a hurry. So, but that's something that I think the people that oversee Bannock and that, maybe look in the future, what can you do to help the fire? There is no water, you know, in the creek, and this year it's gonna be terrible. I'm afraid to see what Bannock Days looks like for water in the creek. Bannock Days is always the third Saturday and Sunday of July, and they've got a big promotion. It's their 50th anniversary this year. And so the wardens have an art contest. I'm not sure, Carrie Wall is kind of ahead of that. Carrie started with the department in the parks. And his first gig was Tongue River Reservoir and the Rosebud Battlefield. So he's bringing his family down to come to that tomorrow. But pretty interesting, and he's the one that's getting the art contest set up for Bannock Days for their 50th. So, nice drive over this morning. I drove by trying to think of the Lewis Clark, or Clark's Lookout, excuse me. And I was there early when I left town, and there were people already up on top of Clark's Lookout. And then down past Beaverhead Rock, and I stopped, took a couple of pictures of it. The sun was hitting it perfectly. And I just noticed the signs as I come down the highway, down the interstate. The park signs. And there's only a couple that don't have the parks emblem on it. Bannock is one of them. And the Prairie Dog Town is one of them. But, you know, that little blue marker, that logo, it sticks out on the sides. I think it should be on all of them. Something that could be just stuck on there. So, get out and about and do a better report next time.
It's great. Kathy?
Well, I have been out and about a lot. I hate see him. And I have to tell you, our state parks are us. They're our Montana history, and that tell our stories. Makoshika added on a lot of different things. Now we're doing a bat walk. Why not? It's to learn about bats. We have buzzard days, you know. I see up here they're gonna do horny toads. I think it's really interesting, but it's that educational component that is very, very important in my way of thinking, okay? I realize I'm a little prejudiced because I believe in public-private partnerships, and they only work when there's education involved and they can both realize the value of what we're doing. Anyway, in Glendive, that really showed up when we had that big fire, and the community just, the Friends of Makoshika came out in droves and the whole town to help. That was important. And to rebuild, it was just like, it was nothing. It's okay. It's part of life. Let's go on, you know, because this is a value we're going to take care of. I appreciate that. Also, I was just recently, I told you some of you guys, down in Ekalaka last week. And I went into a restaurant and the gal didn't know me, which is kind of cool, being incognito, you know. Because I've written grants for everywhere across Montana, you know, a lot of people do know you, but and politics, you know, 13 and a half years of a political career kind of gets you that way. She didn't know me, and I walked in and I, Ekalaka, this is so cool here. What do I do here in Ekalaka? Gotta go to Medicine Park, like the Medicine Rocks. You know, I've been there 1,000 times, but I thought it was so cool. She said, what you're going to do when you drive in there, you get out and just stand and experience it. You'll realign your chakras. If the community had not been engaged, they wouldn't know these things to tell to people. How cool is that? So we're doing the right thing. Just saying.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's all.
Did you say I didn't know they were out of alignment?
Hey, what the heck?
Maybe we all are.
Yeah, maybe we all.
But I
Great.
thought that was so, that's great.
And of course, you did mention the museum there, right in town, which is amazing. That's an outstanding museum too. The thing is, I just thought it was so cool to have somebody recognizing the value of what we have
You're right.
and how important that is to preserve.
And that doesn't happen without education, so that's an awesome
Exactly, and
story.
that's why I like this outreach. At least in Glendive, I think, we do get a lot of tourists down in Makoshika, okay? But you know, the ones that are coming on those hikes, like the Moonlight over Makoshika hikes and the Buzzard Days and the other, they're locals. There's more locals coming. This bat thing will be the same thing, I'm sure. Tourists are important and I'm glad they're there. But in other words, this outreach that is telling the community that this is an important part of us, of our state and of our history. Look at the history of Bannock. I mean, this is important to get water up there to preserve. So,
Thank you. So from my district, obviously I've got First Peoples Buffalo Jump. I sent a recent transplant to Montana there with his girlfriend. They saw the rattlesnakes. They were very excited. I'm like, just be careful. They're not fluffy cows. And at Giant Springs State Park, we have a new recreation manager who started. And they've also, I meant to look this up. The Cochrane Dam crossing, did that happen or is that happening? Anybody know? I think it might have already happened. I've been out of town the last few weekends. Anyway, but that's pretty cool. And then they're also working with the Great Falls Bike Club to set up, develop some trails for some biking. And then the Smith district started out very slow, like the drought you were mentioning. And then recently I don't know what we've done, but we've been having massive amounts of rain. And it has just gone crazy. In fact, a friend of mine owns a ranch in the high woods and they got 6 inches of rain in 10 days. It's just as muddy, mucky, green and wet as you can imagine. I don't know how long it will last, but it's been wonderful.
Let's schedule a rain dance.
There you go. So our staff, of course, have been busy doing river patrols, watching for log jams, some of the brush work that needs to be done from the engineering projects that were started last year. And then, of course, a follow-up for the Smith district, or the Judith district, or Judith Park, because we were there last year. They're still working on the assessments and developing the projects and interpretation stuff for that site. So when it's all done, it'll be wonderful. With that,
So question, Liz,
Sure.
did the ski hill at Showdown, they had a lot of snow this year, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
And then a lot of rain too. Wow. We had none.
I wish we could send some your way. Director's report.
And Madam Chair, members of the board, it's so great to see everybody in person
Great.
today. So for the record, my name's Renee Lemon. I'm the Parks and Outdoor Recreation Division Administrator. I'm gonna cover the director's report on behalf of Director Clark. She's on the road right now and sends her regards and is looking forward to seeing some of you at Rosebud Battlefield tomorrow. So starting off, our busy season for Parks and Recreation kicked off in May. And we have some preliminary visitation numbers. We're showing pretty average compared to last year, maybe a slight reduction. And then I've asked regional recreation managers just anecdotally what they're seeing out in the field, and very similar. I think it's average, maybe slightly down due to some cool and rainy weather that we're seeing at some of the parks. And we actually have Liam Harry here today. He's our planner in Parks and Outdoor Recreation, and he does all of our visitation. He works with the University of Montana, so we're happy to have him here today. And we just completed our 2025 state park visitation report. In 2025, 3.38 million people visited our state parks, which is a 4.9 increase from last year. And Beth's going to give a detailed report on that today. And then, as Jody alluded to, we have some pretty monumental retirements that are happening right now. And I know the director wanted to also mention Dave Landstrom, our Region 1 Recreation Manager, is retiring in July. And he's been with the agency for 29 years, and he's really been instrumental in leading our parks in Region 1 and across the state. He's contributed to so much. So we're gonna miss his sage advice and his leadership and guidance. And then right here in Region 5, Richard Took recently retired, and he was the manager of Pictograph State Park. So if you haven't visited that park, I was able to go about a month ago. It has a well-maintained loop that goes to the Pictograph Caves, a beautiful visitor center, a really nice kiosk. So we're really thankful for all of the work that Richard put into that park. A couple of events that were already mentioned: the Battle of the Rosebud 150th commemoration takes place tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. And then the 50th anniversary of Bannock Days is happening July 10th and 19th. And then I'll just give you a little trailer for a project that you'll be seeing in December. So our division staff has been working hard on a public use and commercial use fee proposal. Our fees are outdated and difficult to understand. So our goal is to update them to both increase the amounts to account for inflation and increases in operation costs, and also to make them easier to understand and apply both for the public and our staff. So we are going to be putting the draft fee proposal out for public comment later in June for 30 days, because we want to see what kind of public comments we get before we bring the fee proposals to the commission and the board. So we are planning to bring the proposal to the Fish and Wildlife Commission in October and before this board in December. So that ends the director's report.
Great, thank you. Just for my learning and information, the commission has to approve the fee. Are the fee proposals under the ARM or under the MCA?
So really good question. So the MCA states that the commission is in charge of the rules for fishing access sites, WMAs, and other similar sites. And then the board is responsible for rules for the parks. And then the ARM has specific public use rules and commercial use rules that reference fee proposals. So we call it a fee rule, is a separate package outside of ARM.
Gotcha. And so if the commission approves the fee proposals, do they approve it? I guess I'm trying to think about the structure of the.
Yeah, and it's
legality.
because we did the reorganization, right, and brought all of the sites, fishing access sites, wildlife management areas, state parks, all under our division. We're now consolidating all of these rules and fees. And so it is a little bit clunky, but we'll make sure it's nice and clear what we present to you for your approval.
I have no doubt you will. Just was curious. Okay, thank you for that. With that, let's move on to the action items. We've got the seasonal closure presentation also by you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So again, Renee Lemon, Parks and Outdoor Recreation Division Administrator. So this is a request to fully close 3 parks on a seasonal basis. And again, we were just talking a little bit about those rules. So as the board, you establish rules for the parks. And then we have a whole ARM rule that has standard public use rules. And anytime a manager needs to vary from those standards, then we're bringing those variances to you. And we're in the process right now, and actually I'm glad Liam's here. He's been a big help in trying to clean this up and bring this any variances that need to be approved by the board, bring them in front of you. And so all three of these parks, so we've got Fort Owen State Park, this is in Region 2. It's located north of Stevensville. And all three of these parks have historic resources. So Fort Owen has historic buildings listed in the National Register of Historic Places. I would also say it has relatively lower visitation. So for example, from 2021 to 2025, the estimated average annual visitation was just over 4,000 visitors. And park management has been implementing this seasonal closure from November 1st to February 28th since 2021. So again, we're bringing this in front of you as a cleanup. The second park is Pictograph State Park, Cave State Park, which is right here in Region 5, south of Billings. And again, as I just mentioned earlier, it has historic pictograph cave resources and other artifacts. And then the third park is Chief Plentycoo, which is located 40 miles south of Billings. And the reason for the seasonal closures is that we have these amazing historic resources, and yet we've let our seasonal staff go for the season. So we have a lower amount of staff presence. So in order to protect those historic resources, we want to be able to continue to seasonally close them. And so for Pictograph, the proposal is to implement the seasonal closure on Mondays and Tuesdays from the third Monday in September to the third Thursday in May. And the same closure for Chief Plentycoo State Park. So in conclusion, again, we're recommending that the board approve these variances to allow for these seasonal closures.
Just to clarify, those are the dates that they've currently been closing, correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct.
So it's just a matter of making what we're doing,
Make it official.
match, yes. Okay. Are there any questions from other board
Has there
members?
been any, oh, I'm sorry.
So, good.
Has there been any negative repercussions or things showed up over the, since you've started closing it down?
Madam Chair, board member, so I can speak to Fort Owen, and they have not received any negative comments. I would say we could take advantage of having our regional recreation manager, Ryder Pagan, right here in the room.
Yeah, so Chief Plentycoo and Pictograph Cave, the management practice has been to close those on Mondays and Tuesdays for a very long time, longer than a decade, due to historical resources, but we haven't had any negative impacts from closing those. And we do enough programming, and the visitation still reaches like over 40,000 at both of those parks throughout an annual basis with the closures during the off season. So I think we're getting pretty good attendance at the sites without it.
Good
So,
answer.
So a question for Renee. So these closures have been in effect for a while already. So Plentycoo on the website says summer, mid-May to mid-September, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Winter, Wednesday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. What's winter? So this will give specific dates to it, which if we approve this.
Madam Chair, board member, yes, that's correct. We will have specific
Excellent.
dates. And Ryder, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I can add to that, Russ. Yeah, so it's always been in our business rules, like outside of the peak season, so what we call the off season.
Yes.
We just use the term winter loosely because the general public doesn't understand mostly like off and peak season times, but it's always been that same Thursday to that Monday, or that Monday to that Thursday. So, yeah.
So is there any signage? I saw that Chief Plentycoo sign when I come out of Cabela's. I made a short pit stop where I got here. And, you know, it's show where it was, but it didn't really say when it was open or anything. Is there signage further down than, so somebody isn't gonna drive all the way down there not knowing that it's closed on those Mondays or Tuesdays?
Yeah, and so the only signage we have is at the park.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Ryder, would it be on our website as well?
exactly. It'd be available on the website. So generally, and then as well as like all of the like, we try to stay updated with that information on Yelp, like Google, like most of that stuff, like most of our managers are actually having accounts that can adjust that. So like Pictograph Cave, we're going on Yelp, making sure that the various business reviews, like where people look for travel advisory information, it's updated there as well. So generally can find it accurately online on which days it's closed. If you Google Chief Pweniku in the winter on a Monday or Tuesday, it'll say closed, so.
So at Bannock, when you pull off the 278, the first Bannock State Park sign, it says operating winter hours and it tells you the time we're operating summer hours, which are longer. And it's right there, but I still had to drive from Dillon to get out there. But I mean, you're not gonna inform everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Jody.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Whiting. Question, maybe in a comment and maybe a couple of questions. I look at it, my perspective is, of course, with Fort Owens State Park, and I was always the understanding that I was looking at this and my mind was stuck on the vandalism component of, you know, prevention, trying to keep some of our areas safe while at the same time, keeping them accessible when people want to see them. So I don't know how much that played into this decision, but that was kind of in my mind when I think of like Fort Owens, somebody comes over from Travelers Rest and opens the gate, goes back, and it's wonderful. I mean, we've got a balancing act going on here, but this site of these incredibly old buildings that we've paid a lot of money, she could definitely, Rachel can talk about this. So we paid to restore the foundation of Fort Owen and the roof, and this is like the oldest stuff there is. This is like the earth was still cooling. And so you know, and it's just open, how people can just go there and walk through there and turn the handle and walk inside and look at the inside of this place and on a self-guided tour through there. So I'm always worried as you see things happen. For example, like Milltown, they're locking the restrooms at night. Dave Landstrom told me a story of what happens when somebody drops a bundle of fireworks down the vent pipe for the vaulted toilets. So these things keep me up at night when I think about that. There's been a lot of projects I've been involved in that weren't F2P projects that got vandalized within 24 hours of all volunteer labor. So as far as that's something that I support when you've got, you look at Bannock and how you can just walk, enjoy, and get thrown in jail. I mean, these are things when we've got kind of this level of trust with the public, and I don't want to lose that. And if it needs a little bit more oversight, or close it when nobody's around, but still be able to not put Fort Owen behind the gate, to still be able to enjoy it like that. I'm fully in support of those measures. And so do you have any comment on that, or is that also part of in the mix of your thought of this?
Madam Chair, Board Member Loomis, I think what you're talking about is exactly what we're grappling with. We're looking at the resources that are at the park, looking at our staffing, looking at visitation demands, and just given that Fort Owen has a relatively lower number of visitation, we felt very comfortable closing it for that shorter seasonal period when people aren't as likely to be out there as well, right? Because it's during the off season. Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, just on Fort Owen, do you think that visitation will increase with the improvements to the John and Nancy Owen fishing access site?
Madam Chair, Board Member Loomis, that's an interesting thought. I don't know, Liam, if you have any ideas on that, just given you're in the visitation data.
Yeah, I think we tend to see kind of a quick jump in visitation with newly established state parks. And so we'll see that, and then it'll start to stabilize a little bit as people become familiar with it. With a new accessible site with some camping opportunities and also being in proximity to Travelers Rest, there is the possibility to start seeing a jump in visitation. We're just not gonna see that big of an impact on these kind of off-season months necessarily, because most who are traveling and visiting these sites are coming from out of state. Are gonna be tending to do that over the kind of summer months and not so much during the winter, where the proposal, for that closure is proposed.
Thank you.
John,
Yes, Madam Chair. What, is there any staffing during these closures or the park is just empty?
Madam Chair, Board Member Moranzik, so we have a regional recreation manager. We also have a full-time year-round recreation manager, Jessica, who Jody mentioned earlier. But that would be it for the full-time staff covering that area. So they would be able to, and then we'd have some maintenance staff that would be able to do some regular monitoring. But again, we're letting go all of our seasonal staff during that time.
Yeah, well, Pictograph Caves, the road into there is pretty long, so if anybody wanted to go in there, nobody was manning it. That seems it's a long way in there, so maybe they won't try to do that. I worry that if there's no one there, I could give rise to vandalism or want to go and party or whatever.
So
Yes. Madam Chair, Board Member, Ryder, could you explain how you guys close Pictograph Cave?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. Pictograph Cave, part of this closure for Pictograph Cave is because of that long road. So when we have slower staffing sessions in the winter months, we really only have 3 people to work with, if not 2 people to work with. And they have to keep the park open during those other days, 5 days a week. So we would have to try and staff a park with 2 people for 7 days a week for 12 hours, which just isn't feasible with our current staffing levels. Right now in the summer months, like I said, we have 3 people. We have a manager, a ranger, and an admin clerk, and then volunteers if we get them. In the winter season, we really only have a manager and a ranger, 2 people, and that's with the current FTE that we have right now. And so due to vandalism issues that have been happening in the past when we weren't on a 2-day closure on Mondays and Tuesdays, it just seemed really beneficial to have the closure to prevent that vandalism, because these are really remote, isolated spots. And we don't have the staffing level to keep somebody there for 7 days a week, that we can close these gates, we can keep people out of there. And at this point, the community is pretty aware of these closures. It's not new. It's just been a standard management practice for a while. So does that answer your question on the staffing? It's really just 2 people in the winter months, so.
Yeah, and Clinicu, I forget the gentleman's name,
Aaron?
Aaron, yeah,
Yep.
Aaron lives right there,
Yep,
so that's pretty safe.
yep, exactly.
He's always there, so, yeah. Thank you.
yes.
So are there locked gates for all these 3 facilities? And do you lock it off from the public?
Fort yes.
Yeah, I've
There's,
seen
and
it for
there's
Thank you,
there's
Rob,
a
yes.
gate, I'm sorry, kind of, excuse me, Madam Chair. Russ kind of springboarding off what John said, the gate's farther back, it's wide open, and actually, the neighbors that have donated this and or have provided access to it, and then part of the donation to the very close proximity to the fishing access site, they're there, and I think they see somebody in there at certain times. I think there's, in other words, I think that there's,
$4.
yeah, yep, I think there's some extra eyes on the site as well.
Any other questions from board members? I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair.
Please.
I move the State Parks and Recreation Board adopt the following full site closures at state parks seasonally close Fort Owen State Park from November 1st to February 28th. Seasonally close Pictograph State Park on Monday and Tuesdays for the third Monday from the third Monday in September to the third Thursday in May. And seasonally close Chief Pleniku on Monday and Tuesdays for the third Monday in September to the third Thursday in May.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the letter?
Madam Chair, we have no public comment.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We now have some informational updates.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair Whiting and board members. It is really good to see everybody in person. And I would actually like to start with a very beautiful product that I would like to hand out. I believe we had the SCORP update to you in the previous board meeting, but this is the official printed document of it. So this is, I just need to give a huge shout out to Amber Lopatine, our Parks and Recreation planner. I think this might win as far as the most beautiful yet succinct report. It's half, maybe even about a third of the size of the last one that we had in the 2016 timeframe, but this is really beautiful. And so I just wanted to make sure that each one of the board members has an official copy. And Renee, I believe that you already have one, correct? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So yeah, again, Amber did a ton of work to get this to this place where it is actually printed. We don't intend to have a lot of printed versions of this, just in light of the cost to print it. A lot of color in here, a lot of data and color and whatnot. So we will have a few printed copies at our Helena headquarters office, and then of course one in each of the regional offices as well, so people can come in and reference it in case anybody is out there listening from the public. So that's kind of how we plan to do it. And then of course digital, it's already on the FWP website. But the reason that I wanted to mention the SCORP, which is the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, is in light of the visitation report, which is what I am here to present on, the 2025 visitation report, which I also believe, thanks to Eric, I think we have the latest version that was sent out to you in email, but also one in your binders. So everybody should have a copy. And then I need to also give a shout out to our other Parks and Recreation planner, Liam. Harry, thank you, first of all, for being here. He's based out of the Missoula and Helena office. And we're all en route to Rosebud, so we have the fine honor of having Liam in our presence. Liam does an amazing job in working with all of our Parks and Recreation staff, sometimes maintenance, you name it. This is a true team effort to come up with every single data point to produce this final 2025 report for the entire state park system. We're talking calibration of every single device, checking those devices, sometimes by the day, by the week, by the month. So there's a lot of work that goes into this behind the scenes. We have a really key partnership with the Institute of Tourism and Recreation and, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the other R, research, out of the University of Montana. And they help us put a lot of this data together and actually help us, produce this report too. I also want to say that I think this might be one of our most beautiful products as far as visitation report this time around. And that is in light of our communication and education division Emily, Lou Ellen, and I don't know if there were others in the communication division, but they just did an amazing job of really putting this data into a beautiful format that I think is really easy to understand and yet pull out some of the highlights. So hopefully everybody feels the same way about the final report.
I
So
love that. I have a question. I'm gonna interrupt you.
Sure.
We all know where this is, right? You guys all know where this is?
Oh, yeah.
This is my
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
but who knows where this is?
I know, it's just,
Is that what you think? I don't know. I want someone to tell us the right answer.
Oh, I think
I think it's Missoula.
What? Really?
Oh, the Blackfoot.
It's what?
Blackfoot, the answer of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Like, but it could be a lot of different locations.
Yeah. Where do you want it to
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. Is there a point? Is that up, the presentation? I do have just a very short, few slides, because I wanted to try to bring out some of the highlights of this report, so I just wanna point out a few things, and the first thing that I will point out is on page 11 and 12 of the visitation report. It actually highlights some of the SCORP data and how Montanans feel about outdoor recreation generally. And so I thought that was a really nice, just kind of pulling out some things. We're really wanting to use the SCORP document in various ways. That's part of the implementation plan and process. Is we don't want this information to sit on a shelf. We really want it to be utilized. And so this is a great start to, yeah, let's bring some of this information into the visitation report. So that's page 11 and 12. So yeah, this report essentially shows strong statewide demand. Visitation is certainly not decreasing. It also highlights just the importance of managing growth strategically across regions of the state, as well as seasons and some of these really high use parks. So next slide, please. So 2025 was merely a record year. I don't know if that's probably about as big. Can everybody see that? Okay. This is a statistic heavy information. So I tried my best to kind of pull some of the numbers out. But like Renee mentioned, we had 3.38 million visitors this past year. And this is nearly the highest total in the last decade. So from 2015 to 2025, the only exception is 2021, where we had kind of that COVID bump that pretty much every outdoor recreation provider saw in that COVID era. Growth is certainly not limited to just one district. You already highlighted Chair Whiting, Giant Springs. That seems to be the park that receives the highest visitation number year after year after year, which is quite fascinating. And I'll get into more regional details here in a minute. Yeah, we've had a 5% increase since 2024 numbers, so a slight bump there. And then almost a 12% increase versus the 2022, which that still was kind of that COVID rise. And so just about a 30% increase or so in the last 10 years. So definitely demand continues to be high. Next slide. So this, it says summer remains dominant, but shoulder months matter. So essentially, this slide really, I'm trying to portray the seasonality factor of our state park system and what we're seeing across the board. And 54% of the visitation, that 3.8 million or 3.38 million, we're seeing those numbers between May and September, 54% of them. And then in between October through April, so sort of that off, non-peak season, we're seeing still over 1 million. So that's still a lot of visitors. And then I thought this was a super interesting statistic, that almost 50% more visitation in the month of November from the previous year. And some speculation on that is just that we've had some really nice falls where people are still able to get out and recreate. Some people are still going out on the water. They're still bringing watercraft to a lot of our sites because they're not limited to access. We're not closing some of the gates because of snow. And so they're still able to get out there. So I found that, you know, a really key takeaway as far as, whoa, that's what we're seeing in the month of November. That's a pretty significant increase. So next slide. So 2 of the regions are still carrying the majority of the visitation, and those 2 are Region 1 in the Kalispell, Whitefish, Flathead area, as well as Great Falls, Region 4. Region 4 added just almost 175,000 visits from that 2024 to 2025 timeframe, which is the biggest regional increase in the system. And however, we did have some decrease as well. And if you go to the next slide, I will show you, this really points out that we had 8 parks that cleared 100,000 visits last year. So here are your 8 parks that cleared that. Giant Springs right at the top, followed by Flathead Lake. And I want to point out that Flathead Lake is actually 6 different park units that make up Flathead Lake State Park. And then Missouri Headwaters, I'm sorry, what was I gonna point up here? Oh, Cooney Reservoir, yeah, so in Region 5, Cooney Reservoir tends to be, they eke out Lake Elmo, barely, but both water-based parks. And then Lone Pine, out of all of these parks, these 8 parks here, is the only non-water-based park. And the main reason that we see such high visitation at Lone Pine, even though it's not water-based, first of all, it's right outside of Kalispell city limits. It's very convenient. We have really high trail system usage. And we also have really high archery range usage. That's just consistent, and that continues to grow and grow. And they have an amazing interpretive and education program. Tons of school groups and all sorts of community events. So Lone Pine just has a lot going on in that regard. And then also in Region 4, Spring Meadow. So that's kind of Helena's very consistently used local park. It's almost kind of seen sometimes more like a city park. It's that urban based park, kind of like Lake Elmo, where we just have that consistent use of people, you know, a lot of locals and frequent users that sometimes use it literally every day to walk, you know, just go on their walks or try and hit the water. And then Thompson Chain of Lakes, that, you know, is when Renee and I had this great tour with Dave Landstrom actually last year, and Dave Bennett's the manager. And it's a very long, it's a linear park. It's actually made up of what kind of used to be deemed as previous fishing access sites, but all made into one contiguous park area. And that has seen some steady growth as well. And then Tongue River Reservoir is the highest in Region 7. So those are your top 8. But I just found that interesting that 7 are water-based. So next slide, please. Yeah, and so as far as just kind of that, that steady growth and where some of the pressure points are, Region 1, you know, they're nearly at 1 million visits. So that is really significant. That's almost 30% of the statewide total. And then I already kind of talked about Lone Pine, Thompson Falls. So that's a little bit closer to the Canadian border, as well as Brush Lake out of Region 6, which is right close to the Canadian border and North Dakota, but they both saw a decrease. So those were 2 areas that we saw a decrease, and you know, Canadian visitation was down generally in the lower 48 this last year. So that tracks. And then Region 3 is pretty consistent. You know, they rose almost 6%. Bannock Lost Creek is a really beautiful park. If nobody's been there, that is definitely a worthwhile visit. And then, yeah, Region 7 also continues to climb, especially with Tongue River Reservoir and Makoshika. Again, they have a ton of programming. It's such a community center. They have those regular visitors that are literally coming every single day. Next slide. Okay, then we also have these post-stay surveys. And so we collect post-stay surveys from 26 of our reservable state parks. And this is the result of this post-stay survey. And I just really want to point out that the 92% for a positive staff rating, that is significantly high number, especially for a state park system. So wow, good job, Parks and Recreation, maintenance staff, like everybody deserves just a huge kudos as far as the work that they're doing to be helpful and courteous. And that oftentimes is whoever might be in the site at the time to really be helping that visitor just better understand what's even available here. Where can I find the hiking trail? How do I make a reservation for this, or whatever the case might be? So 92% positive staff rating of good or very good. That is really high. So if you see somebody out there in your state parks on your visits, give them a huge shout out for being so helpful and courteous.
Are some of those the volunteers that are there?
And it might be the volunteers, it could be camp hosts, absolutely, or even our AmeriCorps members. Who, yeah, because oftentimes people don't necessarily differentiate. Yep. So yeah, that's a really good point. And an average night stay is 2.57. So that kind of suggests that both short recreational trips as well as destination camping use is what a lot of people are seeking out. I've recently been spending some time at Lewis and Clark Caverns, and we were very much seeing that with the camping traffic coming through there. There oftentimes the caverns is the stopping point in between Yellowstone and Glacier, and it just is the perfect location to maybe do a cave tour and camp for a night or two. So that very much reads as far as what we're seeing here. Or, you know, they might go to the Flathead, but then they want to go see some other locations as well. And so that's the average night stay is 2.57. The reservation window. So we have had some changes as far as how early you can make a reservation. We reduced it from a 6-month window in advance to make a reservation down to 3 months. And 70% said that the 3-month reservation window is just right, while 19% thought it was too short and 11% thought it was too long. So that's a pretty high number as far as 70% there. And then we've also went from a 14-night camping limit stay to 7 nights in the last couple of years. And so 80% said that the 7-night per month stay limit is just right, and 14% saying it's too short, 6% too long. So yeah, so I find that just, it's really good to have some of this data now that we've been in this for a couple of years.
Wasn't as controversial as we thought it might.
Potentially, yeah. And then I find this really interesting too. What are visitors doing? Granted, I do need to point out that this is a post-stay survey of people that are using our reservation system to either reserve a campsite, potentially a cave tour, maybe an event, something like that. But still, 84% of people visiting the parks in this survey response are camping. So people definitely love to camp. And they identified camping as their primary activity by almost 60%. So that's pretty high. So yeah, next slide. That's about all that I had as far as trying to point out some of the key highlights of the visitation report, but I'm happy to take any questions if the board members have any.
I had a question for you, Beth. Water base, what's the visitation for the Smith River?
I'd have
If
to
you
look.
don't, that's okay.
Might be in there.
Chair Whiting and board member Kip, I can look that up.
There it
It
is.
is.
It's not much.
Yeah, it's on page 10,
Page 10.
Smith River, 5,255 people.
And that was for last year.
Am I looking at the right one?
It's a 33%.
No, I'm sorry, 164,731 people. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Spring Meadow. Ah,
From the bottom.
Right, that was one down.
Smith River.
yeah, so I did have it right the first time. Yeah,
52.65.
5255.
So that's been pretty consistent.
And Chair Whiting and Board Member Kip, you know, I think the main reason that the Smith River is so consistent is just because it's a permitted river system. And so there's only so many permits and there's only so many people that can essentially utilize that permit
Right.
per day. Yeah. It can vary to some degree as far as, you know, outside that permit season.
But you have some early season before they get going, and then on some years, the water will hold up and they can run longer, but it's not very many people usually.
Yeah, and it all depends on the flows, for sure.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I know it might be a little bit out of your purview, but the number of people who are opting out of the state parks fee on their license plates,
Mm.
have we seen any changes in that? Increase or decrease?
So Chair Whiting, actually, we are just in the process currently of trying to retrieve that information. We actually have to get that from DOJ.
Yeah.
Because they handle all of the
in their
DM,
system.
yeah, it's in their system. And so we are working on trying to get a more recent reading of that. However, statistically, we typically see right about 75% compliance of that, of Montanans paying that fee. Yes.
And do our park rangers or park people check license plates to see if they, you know, all the cars parked in the parking lot, or do you know if we have a lot of out of compliance
So Chair.
residents?
Yeah, so Chair Whiting, yeah, so really good question, and essentially, if they have a Montana license plate, we hope and tend to believe that, yes, they have already opted in to pay that registration fee, that $9 fee, to access their state parks. However, it was probably in the I think it was maybe 2016 or so timeframe that we did spot checks across the parks system to actually verify proof, and we were actually going and seeking proof of registration to make sure that they actually paid their entrance fee in the registration process. However, we had a little bit of pushback from some residents saying that that just seemed to be a little bit too kind of getting into their, you know, details, personal information. So we haven't done a spot check in quite some time, but it's something that we certainly could do if we wanted to. However, we have really good, you know, level of 75% is typically the amount that we're seeing as far as Montana residents paying into it.
I just noticed recently when I was in my local county office that they had a big sign that says, "You have the right to opt out of the state parks." And I thought,
Or you have the right to opt in.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, as I recall, it's something related to legislative, you know, of some of the legislators kind of questioning that, but I just thought,
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, Chair Whiting, so we actually, when working with our Communication Education Division, just in the last few months, we produced some new posters that we're trying to get distributed to all 56 county offices that really help Montanans better understand what is this $9 fee going towards? And what are you able to then access throughout the year? Cause it's not just the state parks that they gain entrance throughout the year. But it's also contributing to some degree towards some fishing access sites as well as the trail stewardship program. And so just trying to help people understand that and making sure that they hopefully see it as a benefit and an ease and convenience. So when they do show up to a state park, they don't have to pay that day use fee,
That's a big deal.
right? Yeah.
So I was at my county treasurer's office getting license plates and I have a lot of vehicles. I license anything that can drive to Bannock, my snow plows and my hunting trucks. No, I don't get a state park. But I was in there and there was a person that asked, they said, do you want to opt out of the state parks? And he said, well, what's it for? The employee in the treasurer's office said, well, if you stop at a fishing access site and you use the toilet, you have to have that. Well, those people are selling that product and they don't really know the treasurer's office.
Yeah.
And, you know, there may be a few state parks that are a fishing access site, but for the most part, you have to have a conservation license, not a state parks. And those people in the treasurer's office did not understand that a bit. And I tried to explain it a little bit, and then I got, boy, this is not my job here.
Perhaps signage
But-
at the.
But, you know, that's kind of where it starts, I think, is in those county treasurers, they're educating their staff of what they need to have.
Yes, and board member Kip, so I actually do plan to try and attend the county treasurer's conference this fall. So we can have a presentation and help them better understand how our fee structure works. Back to what Renee was talking about earlier, but just our various fees and how they can be very confusing. And so it's just constant communication and trying to help people understand what the fees are for.
Well, that guy finally decided he'd go ahead and buy it so he could pee at the.
And one other follow-up question, I'm pretty sure I know the answer. So in the past 10 years, there's been nearly a 30% growth in visitation. Has the budget matched?
Chair Whiting, I would. Trying to think of the best response to that, so.
And you can defer to your
Yeah,
finance
I think,
people, but
well,
I'm
yeah.
gonna guess not.
We could certainly provide, more details there. The budget is somewhat complicated, and I say that because we have so many different revenue sources.
Yes.
So you're bringing up one of the key ones, which is our light motor vehicle registration fee, the $9 fee. Coal tax trust has been declining a little bit. That's been another, we call it the state parks big four. That's one of the four as far as revenue sources. So that's declining a little bit. However, at the same time, the coal tax trust has been declining. The marijuana tax revenues have come in, and that has helped our overall
Offset.
budget and offset the decline in coal tax. And then we, of course, have the bed tax as well. And so that's somewhat of a complicated, question to just say in a couple sentences, unless Renee has something better here, yeah.
Well, not anything better. You did well answering that question, Chair. So when we bring you the fee proposal in December, we're also gonna put together some information, like Beth said, getting the vehicle registration, percentages of who's opting out versus opting in. And then we can put together, I think what you're asking for is, so over the last 10 years, what has happened with our budget overall? And that would be very easy to put that together for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we've gone from burning coal to burning weed.
It sums it up right there.
Here comes the hate mail. Sorry.
So I just was gonna ask, what methods do you use to count visitation? And especially I'm thinking like unmanned sites, that kind of thing. I know it could be huge, but maybe you could give us an idea.
Yeah, so it is a mix of various data points and counter information that we have, and so we have these vehicle counters and we have these traffic devices. I will just say, and then I'm going to turn it over to Liam, who truly is the expert on all of our visitation and data collection process, that it was about the 2019 timeframe that we really wanted to make sure that every entry point into a state park, we were collecting visitation data. We did have some gaps identified, so Lone Pine is the best example I can think of, where we have some of these key trailhead locations that people are coming from Kalispell or wherever the local neighborhoods, and we weren't capturing those users. And so now we are. Lake Elmo's another good one where, you know, instead of just getting them from this parking lot, what about some of these other parking lot locations? Because their access points are at such different locations. So we really tried to fill the gaps and make sure that we are capturing even boat-in traffic on Flathead Lake. Sometimes they might be going to Wayfarers from a boat from a different location, so we're now capturing them. So we have really enhanced filling some of those data gaps, but Liam, do you want to add anything more there?
Yeah, so we have what we call vehicle counters at each of the state parks, especially with vehicle entrances at gates. If it's a one-way in, one-way out, we have a bi-directional process of calculating, basically dividing by 2 any entrances, so we back out the same direction. We also have pedestrian counters at walk-in or trail entrances to state parks, and so each of those are capturing. We establish whether they're bi-directional or if it's like a one-way entrance into a park, that's counting each of those. So each state park is unique. You can imagine Giant Springs is one of our most complicated state parks because we have probably 9, 10 different entrances that are occurring. And then there's that, on top of that is just the routing, what we call the routing within a park. So someone might be entering and then re-entering again later. And so what we do to kind of compensate and verify that information is every 5 years, we have a cycle of going out and doing in-person, what we call passive counts, so observations at each of these entrances. And so they're basically watching the counter do its work and make counts, but they're also recording from their own staff are recording that as what they observed as well. So they're recording how many are entering, what state they're from, and then as well as, are they re-entering from another location earlier on? And so that helps with our calculations on the back end as well, as we're able to basically add a multiplier onto each of the vehicle counts, right? So we have a person per vehicle, and that helps us really build out a more accurate data set that we can then produce with the report.
So, one more question for Beth. So this $9 fee is for residents. What does the non-resident contribution look like? Is it increasing yearly or hanging in there?
So Chair Whiting and Board Member Kip, I would have to try and get some of that data back to you. I don't have that off the top of my head as far as how much just the non-resident day use fee is contributing. Are you looking just for day
Yeah, I'm
use
just
or
wondering.
camping or?
Well, I'm just
Okay.
wondering, are they contributing what they need to be or not? I
Yeah,
see cars parked in our parking lot at Bannock, and I watch them and they're non-resident, and they walk right by the visitor center. They didn't go in and pay a fee. I know they didn't. They're camping. Bannock is kind of unique. You go through a gate that says you're in Bannock Park. You go a little ways and there's campgrounds, but then you go down and there's the town itself, and that's where you park and you pay fees. So the people that are back in the campground may not have paid a fee, and they can walk across the bridge and come into town down beyond the headquarters where they would pay. So there could be losing some revenue there. I mean, John's got enough to do.
yeah, and it really,
Take that down.
yeah, and it really depends, because they could have potentially paid online through the
Yes.
reservation system when they made their campsite reservation.
Yes.
We also have a 7-day non-resident pass, we have an annual pass, and so it just depends, they don't necessarily have to pay by the day.
Right.
And a lot of non-residents choose to, maybe get an annual pass or 7-day pass, so it just depends, but we can provide a lot of that information, actually probably at the December board meeting with all of our fee rule information.
Resident pass cost?
It's $35 for 7 days and $50 for annual.
We're
Pass.
borrowing at 9 for everywhere.
And a day pass, I believe, is $8.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Super interesting and super exciting. Love the nice state parks. We also have a cultural heritage program report.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair and board members. Yeah, we have a couple of little handouts here for you. Kind of an overview of our program and then a highlight of some of our recent projects. And then I also brought some extra rosebud posters if anyone would like one for our event tomorrow. So the FWP's Heritage Program is composed of myself and Rachel Reckon. We're both archaeologists and historic preservation specialists. Rachel's based out of Helena and she covers the western part of the state, and I'm based here in Billings and I cover the eastern part of the state. And our job is kind of just to coordinate FWP's stewardship of all cultural and paleontological resources on all of our properties. And then before the reorg, I think Rachel, you were here
Not like
several-
5-6 years ago.
5 or 6 years ago to give a report, and that was before the reorg. So at that time, Heritage just oversaw all of this on just state park properties, but now we cover everything, fishing access sites, wildlife management areas, some leases, things like that. So we just wanted to give you kind of an overview of everything that we do in our program and answer any questions, talk about some of our projects. So on the state parks, wildlife management areas, fishing access sites, all of our properties, there's over 400 documented cultural resources within our state parks, and then more than 1,000 additional cultural resources on the other FWP managed lands. So, and so FWP stewards 8 national historic landmarks. That's the highest level of designation for historic sites. And then 86 other sites that are either listed in the National Register of Historic Places or that are eligible for being listed. So those sites, those heritage sites include anything from pre-contact archaeological campsites, stone tools, rock art sites, teepee rings, cave occupations, buffalo jumps, quarries, and then we also do historic resources. So anything that's older than 50 years of age. So that could be buildings. Yes. I'm almost there.
Congrats.
Yeah, so including ghost towns like Bannock or Elkhorn, historic ranch buildings. We have a lot of those on our WMAs. Mining and logging sites, all kinds of stuff, anything older than 50. And then also with the state law, we have to oversee and protect paleontological resources too. So fossils, dinosaur finds, that kind of thing. So I guess the first component that I'm going to talk about, and then I'll hand it over to Rachel to talk about some of our other stuff. But one of the main things that we do is compliance. So every capital improvement project, so and then many of our fisheries and wildlife projects, if it's on state land, it has to go through a cultural review. So that ensures that we meet our obligations under the Montana Antiquities Act, and then also under the National Historic Preservation Act, and a MIPA as well. So that process could involve us conducting our own cultural resource surveys. We also manage contractors who can do some of that for us. We coordinate all that consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office in Helena, but then also partners in our other state agencies like MDT or DNRC, and federal agencies as well, BLM, BOR. And then, let's see, and then tribal governments as well. So we also consult with the tribal historic preservation offices of all the tribes in Montana and outside of the state as well, so. And then I guess lastly, under that compliance component, we're also make sure that FWP is in compliance with the state burial laws. So if human remains are found on any of our properties and they're determined to not be modern, then Rachel and I have to manage those and make sure that they're sent to the burial board and then hopefully repatriated to tribal governments. I guess some of our compliance projects, just wanted to mention really quick. We do a lot of Bannock, obviously. The siding project, that was a big part of my work over the last couple of years, working with the architect to make sure that those are in compliance with, you know, the standards for historic properties. We're also working on some of the fire suppression stuff that you talked about. That's a major concern. And one of the things that John and I have been talking about is, I don't know when you were there, if you noticed all the sagebrush that has died out.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out what is causing that, whether it's a disease or what's going on with that. They're not really sure. And so I think the first stage is to get a lot of that cleared out away from the buildings and away from the town sites. So it's not a fire risk. So that's been a big part of that. And then also working on the fire suppression system, which is not always perfect. There was some loss of pressure that happened last year that kind of leaves the buildings at risk. So I think that's all been repaired now. So hopefully that will, as we plan for some of those larger long-term plans, having some of that in place.
But the water comes from the creek for.
Yes, yeah. It's a great point. Yeah. Some of our other projects that there's, just to give you kind of the scope, the range of kind of projects that we do, currently doing some contracting work with for the new 26-mile fishing access site in Region 3, the new fencing at the Haymaker WMA here in Region 5. Also worked on the blue water hatchery. There's an issue with the snails possibly getting into the spring, and that was kind of a rush project, doing that compliance. So those, we do all different kinds of stuff, buildings, archaeological sites, and paleontological. So to talk about some of the other stuff, it's up to you. Yeah.
Well, and the first thing that I would say is, Madam Chair, members of the board, is that really what we do, everything that we do is in partnership with other people. We sometimes go out and do some of these surveys Brenna's talking about by ourselves, but most of the time it works like week before, I was on the Mount Hagen WMA looking at a fish barrier project where they're trying to preserve the genetics of the fish upstream and install a barrier. And I'm surveying for that project, so looking to make sure whether there are any artifacts there, or the local fisheries biologist, Jim Olson, who came out and met me, was showing me where the project was going to go, and was also talking about his own knowledge that there had historically been a tramway through there for historic logging. So he's kind of showing me what he knows, and I'm trying to make sure that what we're doing in there is not going to damage any potential remnants of a tramway like that. So all of our staff really within FWP, especially those sort of field going out there staff, whether they're wildlife bios or fish folks, hatchery staff, and especially our recreation managers, really they do a lot of the work too.
Absolutely.
You know, they help us find where the projects are going to be. They help tell us what work they're going to be doing. And then we're the ones sort of helping with the more technical aspect of, is that just a rock? Or is it stone boiling rock from ancient people cooking food? That's the part where we really can come into play. Or like you were talking about, Russ, or Member Kip, with Bannock, where it's not just, we're gonna slap any old siding on those buildings. That's where Brenna's expertise comes into play, with exactly how that siding is milled and the dimensions of it and the treatments on it and all of those things to allow it to last as long as possible, but also, like Brenna said, to be in compliance with all of our expectations legally and also just professionally in caring for these really important resources. So I wanted to run us through a couple other sort of projects we've been working on. I love hearing all of your reports because so many of them are about what we call our heritage parks, which of course are very near and dear to our hearts. But I did also want to talk about, and we wanted to talk about some of these examples from the fishing access sites in the wildlife management areas, because we like to say, and I think it's largely true, there's very, very little to no property that we own that doesn't have some kind of heritage on it. Some kind of archaeology, some kind of historic something. It's kind of everywhere. And that's a good thing, but it also can make things a little tricky sometimes. So speaking to that historic preservation piece, we do have projects like the Bannock Project, all the wonderful work that we were able to do at Fort Owen. Thank you for eloquently speaking to Fort Owen, which you know I'm obsessed with. And all of the work that we were able to do there to preserve the adobe, which was an incredibly complicated process that we underwent. And then I also want to speak to the fact that when we say historic preservation, we're talking about historic buildings, but we are also talking about pre-contact resources. So I was just on the Smith last week with our wonderful river rangers. And one of the things that we had to do was attempt to cover graffiti that unfortunately occurred adjacent to a rock art panel. So that kind of thing we also consider historic preservation, because graffiti begets graffiti. If somebody starts to do it, other people think they should. And then things like also on the Smith, we are trying to armor some of those boat camps like you were talking about. And before we can do that kind of work, I'm there looking at it, thinking about how best we can both protect the archaeology that may occur in those locations, as well as preventing the erosion from a recreational perspective. So that sort of preservation side, it's the buildings, but it's also First Peoples Buffalo Jump and making sure at Madison Buffalo Jump that there's not major erosion happening from the recreational trails, which was happening up until just a couple of years ago. So those kind of projects. I also want to say with a lot of our work, I was talking about the partnership within FWP, but also we are so lucky. It's one of my favorite things about our job, how much we get to work with outside partners too, because, and you folks know this, you're so plugged in with your communities, but folks all around this state are so invested in their local history, in their own local story, in the things that they know that happen where they're from, as they should be. And so we have projects like Brenna's doing a really wonderful effort at a fishing access site with the Bridger Historical Society, where they love this local homestead cabin, has a sod roof, and they want to see it preserved. And so they'll come to us, and we are the ones who work with those community organizations, whether it's the Granite County Historical Society, the museum there in Phillipsburg, the Bannock Association, the Friends at Koshiga, with the McCarty Cabin out there, all of those kind of folks. We have the great pleasure of helping them when and where we can to preserve and enhance and interpret that local history that is so important to them. And that also really happens for us. I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but with our tribal partnerships, we just finished a year ago probably, a really wonderful project that again, Brenna headed up at Chief Plenty Coup, which was really in close partnership with the Crow tribe, because of course, it's really their place. It's within the reservation. And we were able to do some archaeological excavation out there with their Tribal Historic Preservation Office. Their Tribal Historic Preservation Office then did a lot of the processing of the artifacts that came out of that excavation. And we were able to do a wonderful preservation effort on that house, but really through that partnership. And Brenna's also working on a project at Medicine Rocks, an ethnobotanical research project, which means the ways that tribal peoples used plants, not always tribal, but in this instance, in that location with the Crow and the Northern Cheyenne, to try to better understand that place from a slightly different perspective of than just all rock art out there. We also were so lucky to have a new site listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Now, when Brenna spoke to, we have 90 sites or something that are eligible for the National Register. They're not always listed because that's a really long process. It takes a ton of research. So we don't always go through that entire process, but we did just recently for a ghost town within Sluice Boxes State Park. It's a lime kiln, lime processing place where all of that lime went to the smelters in Great Falls. So really regionally significant history. It's called Albright. It's a remarkable place, and it is now listed in the National Register, which is very exciting. I'll tell you to read the nomination, and it's amazing, but it's like that big. It's a lot of information and research went into that, but that's a really exciting one. And then we're also working on a nomination to the National Register for the salmon fish hatchery on Flathead Lake, which is at Summers. And that is actually one of the 2 oldest fish hatcheries in the state and is the coolest place. It still has all the original tanks isn't the word. I'm not a fisheries person. Fish runs inside the building. Raceways. Thank you, sir. I was never gonna come up with that. Thank you so much. So it's a remarkable place in terms of wildlife and fisheries management in Montana. And so we're looking to do a nomination for that to really pull that history forward and better understand it. We've also been doing research at Bannock into its history with the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. And some of that history is really complicated and difficult, but it's fascinating and it's important to understand. And then also with the Chinese community who lived in Bannock, which is not something that we've really had much understanding of at all. And we were able to do a project with really the guy for research into the Chinese in Montana. His name's Mark Johnson. And he wrote a book called
Under the Big Sky.
Under
something.
The Middle Kingdom Under the Big Sky.
Thank you.
We did
yes.
it between the 2 of us.
Yes.
And so he did a bunch of research there at Bannock, which was fascinating, where we found actually a reference to Bannock, and that's what you see on your more pictorial sheet. They found it in the Midwest, like in Chicago, in a field, in a guide that Chinese immigrants had been passing amongst themselves, trying to tell them places that they could go to go mine. And Bannock is listed in this guide, along with all these other really prominent mining places in the West, which is pretty fascinating. So some really fun and interesting research there too. And then I also want to emphasize in terms of tribal partnerships, we were able to work with the Xanka, the Kootenai Culture Committee at the new Concloud Fishing Access Site, which is also an Indian allotment, which is a really interesting and significant history from the early 1900s in that part of the world. And it belonged to a Kootenai family. And so we worked with the Kootenai Culture Committee on some new interpretive signs that explain that history at that new site, which we're very excited about. And then in terms of interpretation, we have another staff member, Dwayne, who helps manage all of our interpretive programs, and he's amazing. Brenna and I really help with the content and the specificity of historical information, cultural information, and for that, we also work really closely with tribes. And we're in the middle of 3 really big interpretive efforts using funding actually from the 2021 session that we are getting out the door here, much needed. One at First Peoples Buffalo Jump, where we're working really closely with tribal partners on a trail at the base of the jump, where there will be panels from the perspective of different tribes about the jump, which I think is going to be really cool. It's been fascinating to get those different names of the jump, different ideas for specific seasons they would use it and how they were using it. Really interesting stories. And then we're also doing a big effort at Flathead Lake, where we've actually, believe it or not, given all the visitation numbers you just heard, there is not really interpretation at Flathead Lake right now, apart from what our staff do in terms of programming, which they do. Not at all trying to diminish that. But we're going to put some physical interpretive signs on the ground out there, again, in close partnership with the tribes. And we're also working on an audio tour on Wild Horse Island. So for folks who go out to Wild Horse, you'll be able to follow this trail, and as you go along the trail, you will get stories being told to you about the island, which we're very excited about. And then the third is Bannock. Bannock getting an interpretive update as well, both for the visitor center and for the booklet and a few other elements too. And then the last element that I really want to hit on, I also wanted to talk about the America 250. We have, Brenna and I worked with the Montana 250 Commission and via the Historical Society to develop a series of, they're those big banners that you can pull up and hook. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, they're not quite cloth, but they're easy to travel with. Where we're telling the story, each of our state parks with a visitor center is going to have one of these panels about what that place was like in 1776. So if you were at Lewis and Clark Caverns in 1776, what were the Shoshone folks doing there? What were the Nez Perce folks doing there? If you were at Flathead Lake in 1776, if you were at Makoshika in 1776, what would that have been like?
That, right?
Yes, Why did I do gestures? It's right there, like that. Thank you very much. So those have been on their way back, helped us deliver one. We've had a variety of people helping us deliver them out to the parks. And then there's another full set of them that are also available for folks to check out. And we have had folks check them out. So they're going places like the Flathead, what are they? Oh shoot, the Northwest Montana History Museum has checked them out, and they're gonna have the whole set in their entryway, you know, that kind of thing. So that's been a really fun project that we got to work on with park staff and also with the Historical Society and the Commission. And then we also help manage collections. So you think about Pictograph Cave, and if you know anything about Pictograph Cave and you know how much dirt they took out of Pictograph Cave, you know that that dirt was filled with hundreds of thousands of artifacts, remarkable things, including a lot of them that are perishable, which is to say they don't last unless they're very, very carefully cared for. And we do not ourselves have a curatorial facility as an agency. We also don't have curation staff. That's a very specific skill set. And so our artifacts are curated at facilities actually all over the state. The Pictograph Cave things are at BLM curation facility here in Billings. We have some things at the University of Montana. We have an agreement with the Museum of the Rockies for our paleontological resources, because Brenna and I are archaeologists, we are not paleontologists, and there's what, 60 million years between the two?
Yes.
So I don't know about dinosaurs.
Give or take.
Something like that. But the laws in Montana, the Antiquities Act, apply to both. They apply to cultural resources and paleontological resources. And because we're the ones in the agency who know the law, we also help with the dinosaur bones. But really what that means is we ask MOR what to do, because Dr. John Scannella there has been a wonderful partner to us. And he and his team do research in Makoshika every year, which is really fun and exciting. They find amazing things there and they get very excited. And so we get excited too, even though I may not fully understand why they're excited.
They're there right now.
They're there right now.
Yeah,
I
they're
didn't know
there
they were
right
out there
now.
now.
Yep.
So we do have that partnership. And then next time you go to Museum of the Rockies, do yourself a favor and look at all the little tags where they tell you where the fossils are from, and you'll notice that a lot of them are from our land. And so a lot of our fossils are curated and cared for at Museum of the Rockies. We also have partnerships with smaller museums around the state. If we get a request, particularly like Carter County, the Carter County Museum, they may have an exhibit where they want to show a particular fossil as part of a story that they're telling. And so we may loan them a fossil for a particular exhibit. Northwest Montana History Museum, same thing. They asked me about something recently and we were able to get it to them for them to use in an exhibition. So we have a lot of those kind of partnerships in terms of the physical items that we help to curate as well. That was a lot of information.
It was great.
That was
information.
exciting. I'm like, you should go into the schools. All the kids will be like, we want to do what they do.
Well, we are lucky too in that we do a fair amount of public facing work, which is really fun. We try to go to our Montana History Conference and present, which we often get to the Montana Archaeological Society meetings. And we do, I know I do, and I know you do too. I'll have the Travelers Rest folks will say, can you come down and do one of our speaker series, or for Amy up at Flathead Lake or whatever, and Brenna does too. You spoke for
At Picto,
Yeah,
on
what was that
Earth
for?
Day. It
On
was-
Earth Day,
yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
So we do that kind of work a lot too, especially as our staff asks for our help with that. So we're really lucky. We have the best heritage shops.
Awesome, yes.
Are we taking any questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I got a really tough one.
Uh-oh.
Elkhorn State Park is,
Yes.
it's kind of one of my favorites. It's really neat because if you can go from the town of Boulder on the historic,
Yes.
do you know what it's called?
The stage line, or no, what do they call
Yeah,
it?
the McCarty Stagecoach route, and it's popular for OHVers because it's pretty primitive, and so you can ride up there to Elkhorn and check it out. And do another loop coming back now. I think in the last heritage report I got,
Mhm.
which put together, I could be wrong on this, I didn't bring it with me, but I still have, would never throw anything away. But I think it shown that the two buildings that consist,
Yeah,
that make up Elkhorn State Park, right?
yeah.
But they're very cool, and I think the one, is it at yeah. Is it a Masonic temple or, anyway,
Labor Temple.
I forget what the two buildings are, it's been a while. But
You asked a
the
question.
one, the question is the one of them is the most photographed building in any of our state parks. Which building is it and is it still true?
I believe that it still is. And I think when they say that, it's both buildings, because it's actually kind of hard to take a picture of just one. They're so close together. I mean, how much space is between them? 4 feet?
Right.
Classic old frontier town, you know, they're really close together. So I think it's actually probably both of them that are, and they say that, but I don't know what that's based on. I have heard that too, that they are the most photographed. They are very
But
charismatic.
there's nothing else there to take a picture of.
That's right, that's the truth. People make the trip up there and then think, oh, I guess we'll take a picture of this. But they're really neat buildings.
Yeah.
Gilliam Hall, so Fraternity Hall is the sort of more castellated front, if you know what I mean. It looks like a little castle on top. And Fraternity Hall was more for labor unions and that kind of thing. The fraternities were, and or some of the like the Odd Fellows. And I don't know for sure that it was used for Masonic purposes. That's a great question. I would have to look that up. And Gilliam Hall was a saloon and then a meeting house and then probably a livery, actually. So a variety of different things.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
glad I asked you.
Yeah.
So the Chinese were instrumental in making the mining towns operate. They did all the work. They went and got all the firewood, they went and they did all of the work. The miners were too busy mining. They didn't have time for that. It's like when they hung Sheriff Henry Plummer, they didn't do it in the summer. They waited till winter when they couldn't mine. And they went and hung Plummer. And one of the things he said, if you give me a horse and a day's ride, I'll bring back my weight in gold. They didn't. They slapped the horse on the rump and that was the end of him. And so not too long after that, Bannock, the gold run out and they all went to Virginia City and Nevada City, all the miners. The Chinese didn't show up. They went through that first season with no help. Didn't know what happened. So they sent people back to Bannock to find out where the Chinese were. They weren't there. They couldn't find them. And they had a lot of them. A couple of years later, they found them up California Creek, which is 25 miles up the Horse Prairie. In the head of it, and there's a thing called Chinatown up there, where they built all these buildings, and it was a replica of mining, gold mining. There's no gold up there. They've never found any. But they think that it was a cover for, they think the Chinese had found the gold that Plummer's gang had stolen. There's no proof of any of this. This was all part of that unsolved mystery thing.
Yeah.
It was on TV.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
Chinatown is up there, so, you know, just some neat old buildings that are way off in the middle of nowhere. That from the people that Bannock. So there's some historical.
I'm sure we'll have lots of stories to share tonight, tomorrow, all of our.
Do you have any interest in the railroads,
Yes,
history,
Yeah.
especially Milwaukee Railroad?
yes.
Yeah, yeah, cause I became really interested in that. I designed substations,
Oh,
so like I worked on some substations between Roundup and gosh, I can't think of the town now, but basically Harleton. Yeah, well, past Harleton, and like I designed the wind farm on Gordon Butte,
Oh,
which
wow.
is in, what's that lake right there? Can't think. OLD. But anyway, so, and then we bought some property in White Sulphur Springs.
Oh, sure, sure.
So that then I started meeting people that have, you know, experience with the Milwaukee Railroad and then Ringling and I met a guy that basically owns 16 Mile, which is a siding or town in 16 Mile Creek, down 16 Mile Creek. And so, I mean, that part of that railroad is amazing with all the tunnels and trestles. I mean, that's a lot of history. It's too bad we can't get that, so that people can see it, use it. Making a pretty nice bike trail.
Those boxes is pretty much, that's a,
Yeah,
I
sluice
think
boxes is
Ted
a railway, the
Turner
Belt Creek
owns
Railway.
some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, some of it is, the Rails to Trails programs are so cool. And some of that we can help facilitate when it's on our ground. Some of it's harder for us to do if it's, if it's not on our ground, it's not in our purview quite so much. But like Brenna said, the main trail through sluice boxes is on a railway.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in, and like at Milltown, the tunnel 16.5, which I love, because they didn't think they were gonna put a tunnel between 16 and 17, and then they had to, so it became 16.5. Is a Milwaukee Road tunnel, that's at
Yeah,
Milltown,
Milwaukee
and
is-
that whole corridor out there, we have.
There's a lot
so
of
many.
those old substations, the
Mhm.
concrete and stone buildings. They're
Yes.
pretty neat, but what was I just thinking? Well, like Ringling is pretty amazing. It's named after the Ringling Brothers Circus. I mean, that's crazy history.
What are the odds?
Yeah.
Right. Are there any other items we need to cover before I ask again for public comment? Checked off the agenda. Do we have anybody who's joined wishing to discuss anything, make comment, anything that was not on our agenda today?
Madam Chair, I have no public commenters in the building and none online.
Thank you. With that, we will adjourn the meeting. Let's adjourn.
I like the
Seconded, adjourn. And then as far as just information about tonight,